Elsie's Little Pickles, the pickle pot for the people. And I want to remind you all that while I was very much down in the dumps on the last podcast because of the outcome, I've had some time to relax, to rest, to reinvigorate myself, and I am no longer in the fetal position wondering how I'm going to face the day.
Well, you're in the fetal position, but for different reasons.
Yes. But thank you to Kiefer for pulling me out of my funk with good news stories that while you, the listener, only heard part of it, that conversation and good news stories continued even after the pod. So one of the things I talked about on the last podcast was the symbolism of the pickle and how it means resistance and resilience, and how we want to incorporate that into a peaceful protest. And we're hoping that every one of our Pickle Pod listeners will find a MAGA house and leave a pickle on the porch. That's it. Just a pickle on the porch. Maybe take a picture and send it to Elsie's Little Pickles at gmail.com. Or you can catch us on Twitter. You can catch us on Facebook. If you do pickle protest and you leave a pickle on a MAGA porch and you can take a picture of it and send it to us, that would be awesome. We would appreciate that. With that being said, the thing that I think is the most interesting is it seems as if there's a little bit of buyer's remorse already out there. And that's what we're going to get into. Yeah, just a little bit. The attitudes. One of the things that I wanted to wait before we did another pod was I wanted to see what the reactions were. I wanted to see where this was going in the general public. Now, let me state this. All right. I think Trump being president again is potentially the worst thing that could happen to the country. I really do. I think that his policies going unchecked. He's got.
Correct.
I mean, it was a bloodbath. They swept all of it, right? I don't know if they got the final number in for the House, but I can't imagine.
I'm going to guess so.
Yeah, I think that they did. I've heard conflicting stories on that, whether they got the House or not. But I believe that they got the House by about 2 seats, if I'm not mistaken. So you're talking, he's got the full boat. He's got full reign, and he's got the Supreme Court who has given him basically a get-out-of-jail-free card so long as he's in office. So I think he's going to do a lot of things that he said he was going to do. I believe that he's going to do what he said he was going to do. When somebody tells you who they are, you should believe them. And now we're starting to see the fallout from that a little bit. You're starting to see people who didn't think voting for him would affect them negatively. They thought it would be more positive than negative. And that's what this show is going to be about, is we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, we're going to talk about some of the appointments that have been made already, or that he's going to make, I should say. He's announced, at least. And we're going to talk about the Department of Education, because that seems to be one that on all the socials is popping up the most. It's also one that is in the news currently. I think that people don't fully understand what the department, or didn't understand what the Department of Education did, and now they're starting to find out. This is definitely a fuck around and find out moment for a lot of people who voted for Trump. Some people will be diehards, some people will be ride and die till the end, even if it means that they're on a sinking ship and there's no hope for them. They will say this isn't Trump's fault, and that's okay. All right. I want to start off by saying, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope Trump, and I hope Trump has a great presidency. I hope he does wonderful things for this country. I hope that this country is so enamored with the job he does in the next 4 years that, and the country's in such healthy condition and everyone's just getting along, and there's no waste and fraud in Washington, and the swamp is drained, and, all these things. I don't think that that's going to be the case, but I hope I'm wrong. I don't know about you, Kiefer, but I come from the point of view of, even if it wasn't my guy, right? It's just like a sports team. Even if my sports team doesn't win, I hope that whoever I choose for the playoffs or for the, the grand finale, I hope they win, even if that's the team that beat my team, right? I can't help but try to be optimistic. Friend of the show, Kirk Nolan, he's always complaining. He's like, you're such an optimist, even under the worst of times. Yep, I try to be, because I want to believe that people have good intentions. Even Trump, I want to believe that he has good intentions. And I want to believe that he is capable of doing good. However, that brings us to some of these appointments. And it brings us to the realization and some of the buyer's remorse that we're about to get into. So with that being said, one of the first ones, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, we know, as an example, we know Kristi Noem, we'll get to her in a moment. There was never any doubt that Stephen Miller, who still, to me, looks like a fucking vampire. I mean, if you, I don't know about that dude. That dude's got problems somewhere.
Somewhere between a vampire and Gollum.
Yeah, but he's like if Nosferatu fucked Gollum and they had a baby, it would be Stephen Miller. You know what I mean?
I think he looked like one of those little stress puppets with the eyes.
His bulge out. Yeah, like if you squeezed him, his eyes would pop out. He's definitively going to be an advisor. There's no two ways about it. He's probably going to have walk-in privileges for the Oval. I would not be surprised by that, because he's been there from the beginning. Say what you will about Stephen Miller, he's never, ever left Trump's side. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm sure it's happened behind closed doors, but it seems like Trump has never really gotten into Stephen Miller's shit. It seems like, for whatever reason, Stephen Miller is able to navigate the whims of Trump. Not always for the best interest, in my opinion, but specifically of the country, because he's so far gone on immigration and this idea of, my opinion is it's a purity test in many ways with him. That's the way it comes across, at least to me. But you said that it looks like Marco Rubio, is going to be most likely the candidate for Secretary of State. And I find that interesting because Trump, first off, I mean, let's go back to the relationship between Rubio and Trump. It started off back during the primaries and him getting labeled Little Marco. So it's not like they started off on good terms, and it's not like it was Rubio that picked that fight in the beginning, but then Rubio did try to get down in the mud with Trump a little bit, and that didn't work out. And he had to go and clean his dirty little shoes, his dirty little Marco shoes. But now he's in bed with him. But you said that there was something that happened not too long ago that with Rubio?
Well, I think it's important to go back. I shall try my best to read this tweet from Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Which says, Marco Rubio is a total lightweight who I wouldn't hire to run one of my smaller companies, a highly overrated politician.
Donald.
I couldn't resist.
And that was back in what, 2016?
2015.
2015. Okay. So obviously there's been some time. So maybe they get along now?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
Marco Rubio, what a name. Marco Rubio. Who names their kid that?
Well,
it's just, I don't know. Anyway.
Little Marco.
There's a video of him speaking to a crowd where he says, and I quote, "Guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party. A guy who has made a career out of telling people lies so that they come in and buy his product or whatever else he does."
So that was obviously back from 2015, 2016, right?
No, that was in July of this year.
July of 2024. That came out of Marco Rubio's mouth. And now
That came out of Marco Rubio's mouth.
Marco Rubio looks like he's going to be Secretary of State. Okay. Fine. I see how this is.
There's actually also a compilation of Rubio insulting and demeaning Trump, including calling him the con man over and over again. That's roughly 4 minutes long.
Well, I wonder if that was presented to Trump in his vetting process.
I only hire
the best people who are most loyal to me. How's that loyalty test going to work out there? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm glad I'm back in the spectator seats so that I can just sit back, eat some popcorn and some goobers and watch this shit show happen. It's amazing.
Oh,
maybe a bag of Twizzlers to go with it. You know. So
I just found a headline that
oh no.
Oh boy. Well.
Come on, lay it on me. Don't keep it to yourself.
A robot dog has been pictured at President-elect Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida. The robot dog is labeled the United States Secret Service acronym USSS. It was photographed patrolling Trump's estate on Friday.
Oh, great.
So there is, in fact, robot dogs being deployed to guard Donald Trump after all the assassination.
Now they got robot dogs.
You can't make this shit up, people. A robot dog, which I guess if you think about it, makes sense because robot dogs don't have feelings.
Yeah.
Well,
Trump doesn't like dogs.
I say dog. Trump says canine. Or no, I have that backwards. Canine. I say dog.
Yeah. So one of his other picks, one of the things that I think is interesting is Rubio, that it doesn't bother me too much about Rubio. All right.
I will say that after 3 days of being on guard for Trump, the robot dog walked out in front of a bus and put itself to sleep.
So Rubio, this is the reason why I'm not too worried about Rubio. I don't think he's the greatest by any stretch. I don't think that he really qualifies for Secretary of State, but he has a background that aligns with the responsibilities of Secretary of State due to his experience in foreign policy and national security. So he he's been a senator from Florida since 2011. He served on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, where he's been involved in shaping U.S. foreign policy, particularly on issues involving China, Latin America, and cybersecurity. His strong stance on global human rights and extensive legislative experience also contribute to his qualifications for the diplomatic leadership role. That's what they say. I say I'm not worried about Rubio because he's one of the people that is actually involved in trying to get the UAP stuff out. So all the alien shit. So for all my bad will towards him, when I found out that he was pushing for answers on that, he got at least one gold star on his little board. He's up there with, and again, these are people I disagree with on damn near everything, whether that's Luna, whether that's Tim Barchett, whether that it doesn't matter really. I mean, like if you're a Republican and you're willing to say, look, let's get to the answers on the UAP thing. And I say that not only for my fascination into UAP and aerial phenomena and aliens and all that shit. I say that because there is, according to our military, specifically, Grush and Fravor, there are things that are in our skies that are interrupting training exercises for our military. So, yeah, if you don't know what that is, you should probably figure that shit out. And even if that means telling the world, hey, guess what? We're not alone. At least then we can deal with it, But when you got
get on TV, hey, Guess what, folks?
Yeah. It's a perfect time. I mean, there's supposed to be, I think, on the 13th of this month, there's supposed to be another hearing regarding UAP. I don't know if Rubio will be in that or not. Hopefully he will be wearing, his little Marco Rubio shoes and sitting on a booster chair. That's the thing that's embarrassing, is you're going to send them all over the world having negotiations with all kinds of foreign leaders and diplomat ways and all that shit, right? And everywhere he goes, he's going to have a booster chair with him. And I think that that's a little bit embarrassing. But moving on, we talked about
Reuters. Well, really quick, Reuters is reporting that Trump's transition team missed the October 1st deadline to submit an ethics plan in accordance with the Presidential Transition Act. What's more is, it's being reported that Trump's assembled transition team has refused to participate with established transition processes, usually beginning months before the election.
Yeah. So that is something that I think people need to be aware of. One of the things in that is, if I'm not mistaken, in when they're basically required to sign disclosures agreements and so on and so forth, like normal operating procedure, and no one's on board with it with this Trump candidacy or with this administration. So that's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of things that go away as far as norms, and a lot of things that come up that you go, that's fucking crazy. Guess what? That's the new norm. That's the new normal. So you just have to accept that. Trump's not going to give you his taxes. He's not going to do anything that he's supposed to do before getting into office. He's not going to work with transition teams. Like, none of that shit's going to happen. And you just got to be okay with it, because there's nothing you can do now. But what will be interesting is, at the end of the month, was it the 27th, I think, or the 29th? He's supposed to go in for his sentencing with Judge Merchant, or however that's pronounced.
Marshall.
Well,
I'm sorry, that was the Canadian pronunciation.
So I think that'll be interesting. Like I said, going back to Stephen Miller, he's a ride or die guy. He's been with him from the beginning. If anyone deserves the ability, and not that I'm a fan of his, I think he's fucking evil incarnate, to be perfectly honest with you, as far as his policies.
He's a white nationalist.
Well, it almost doesn't matter what you call people nowadays. It doesn't matter if it's an accurate description or not. You know what I mean? Like, words mean nothing anymore. Words mean nothing. That's where we're at. You know what I mean? Like, we have to come to terms.
Whose line is it anyways?
Yeah.
Where presidencies have no value and
words have no meanings. Congratulations, this is what you voted for. And that's, again, one of the things I said in the last pod. I will remind people, I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to accept this. I'm going to accept the fact that this is what the vast majority of the American public thought was in their best interest, and I'm going to hope that I missed something. I'm going to hope that I didn't see the writing on the wall the way it should have been.
You're going to hope.
I'm going to hope and pray every day. Oh, Mother Mary. Stephen Miller's qualifications, he was his experience as a senior policy advisor during Donald Trump during his first term, where he played a major role in shaping immigration policy, communication strategy, and national security. Known for his hardline positions on immigration, Miller was instrumental in policies like the travel ban, family separation. His knowledge of legislative process and experience in the strategic messaging also add to his qualifications for an advisory role focused on shaping conservative policy agendas. Now, to me,
he's also known for his perfect goose stomping.
Oh, I'm sure. And his love of strudel. He likes the strudel. Every once in a while, he wants a Wiener Schnitzel. Stop it. Stephen, you stop. You've had enough. You're going to make yourself sick, Stephen.
Do you think he walks around singing Springtime for Deutschland?
Oh, yeah. He's got to.
Producers.
Why not? I mean, why not? Honestly. All right. Mike Waltz His qualifications for an advisory role in the Trump administration include his military background, political experience, and his national security expertise, whilst as a U.S. representative from Florida and a former Green Beret, which provides him with a deep insight into defense and security issues. He's also served on House Armed Services Committee and has been vocal on issues related to military readiness, counterterrorism, and foreign policy. His expertise in strategic defense and national security aligns with potential advisory needs in these areas. All right. That's all well and good. Okay. But the one that gets me, right? So Stephen Miller, Mike Waltz are likely for the advisory roles. Rubio, Secretary of State. This is the one that gets me. And this one I can only, there's two that actually get me.
Mm-hmm.
There's rumors that his lawyer, Alina Habba, might end up in the press secretary role. Okay. Now, if you look at pictures of her from when she first started with Trump to where she's at now, it seems like her hair is getting blonder and blonder, which I think she's playing to Trump's type. And if you look at those blonder pictures, and I wouldn't be surprised by the time she takes the role of press secretary if she hasn't had basically her face made to look like Ivanka's and hair to match. Like, that would not surprise me in an effort to please Donald. But he definitely has a type. You know what I mean? He wants a pretty woman around him, and preferably blonde.
When he mistook E.G. and Carol as his wife in the picture.
Yeah, yeah, right there. There she is. That's my wife. No, that's the woman you raped.
No, sir, that's E.G. and Carol.
That's the woman you raped, dude. Yeah, no, it's okay. Everything's fine. I didn't do that. And yeah, I did it in a Homer Simpson voice on purpose because that to me is what he is at this point. Oh, I accidentally hit the red button on my desk. What does that mean? Oh.
Did you perchance watch his victory speech?
No, I haven't had the stomach for that yet.
Well, I watched it live and I couldn't help but notice Trump came out, his immediate family, Barron, they had to, elongate the doors so that he could put his head through the.
Apparently, they're saying he's got like a 170 IQ. If you can believe that.
Wow.
I said if you can believe it. I didn't say it was true. I'm sorry.
But
he might be a smart guy.
Out, and for the first 2 minutes, you didn't see J.D. Vance and his wife. They were kind of far back in a long train of
everyone but you first.
Yeah. It was very entertaining to me that even Dana White was among Trump's children standing there
before Vance,
long before Vance.
Yeah.
And when Vance began to speak, he kept turning his back to look at Trump. I'm not sure if he was doing it to say, I'm talking to you, or if he was saying,
do I have permission to continue?
It's not even a, do I have the permission to continue? It was more of a, he kept darting his head over like, he doesn't have a knife, does he? Usually awkward, odd.
So usually you pick VP that is competent, but no one would want as president. And it's usually an older person. And you've seen that, consistently. So like when Bush was in office, he went with the older guy in Cheney because no one wanted Cheney as president. So that takes away like a lot of assassination attempts.
Except for his son with the lights. Oh no, I'm thinking Darth Vader. My bad.
Well, I think what ended up happening was they learned the lesson with Quayle, and J.D. Vance,
Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah, J.D. Vance. He's just Trump's Quayle. You know what I mean? Like, he's not bringing anything really of substance as far as like historical knowledge or experience. What he's great at, and he really is good at this, is taking the gibberish that comes out of Trump's mouth and then repackaging it as something that sounds academic. That's his only superpower. He's not going to get Trump to change his mind on shit. He's not, like there's so many different things that he's just not going to be able to do just because of the fact that he's dealing with Trump, and Trump only respects Trump.
So basically, Vance is Trump's Grammarly.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. Kind of exactly. So, but this is the one that really blew me away. Like, I can understand a lot of his decisions based on loyalty, and this is definitely a loyalty position thing, right? In my opinion. Mm-hmm. Choosing Kristi Noem for the Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, this is a job that oversees efforts to protect the U.S. from a wide range of threats, key responsibilities, border security, managing immigration, and securing borders. Okay. She is a governor from South Dakota. I don't see how that really plays into any of her strengths. I don't. I mean,
well, I'm pretty sure Trump just likes to look at her.
That's my point. I think he just likes to look at her. And she's an attractive woman, okay? From a distance. Not so great up close, but from a distance, very attractive.
From a distance.
Hey, even a close up, she's not horribly hard on the eyes, but she's not as, I mean, from a distance, she's a smoke show. Counterterrorism, preventing and responding to terrorism. Again, not a big thing happening in South Dakota. No. Cybersecurity, protecting critical infrastructure from cyber threats. Again, not a big deal in South Dakota. And I'm only saying this from the point of view of, I'm not saying these things don't happen in South Dakota. I'm saying that it's not a big issue in South Dakota. It's the equivalent of having to use the plunger on the toilet. No one likes to have to do that job, but it's not a big job. It's something that's easily done.
She would be my pick if I needed a head of a department of bear removal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you needed roadkill removed, I think she would be right on top of that.
Under out in her heels with the broom and the dustpan.
Disaster preparedness and response, coordinating federal assistance during natural disasters. I'm not sure how many natural disasters there have been in South Dakota. I honestly can't remember any. And I'm not, again, I'm not saying
ask Professor Google.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't happen. I'm simply saying I don't remember any. Let's see here. Transportation security, ensuring the safety of U.S. transportation systems. All right. Emergency communication, leading the national emergency communication planning and support. All of these are this is basically the number one law enforcement job in the country.
North Dakota gets a lot of floods.
She's in South Dakota.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said north.
Ah, my bad. South Dakota.
Okay. So
South Dakota gets a lot of floods.
Okay. So she can handle flooding because she obviously is going to send out the canoe patrol. But this is like
some bounty.
This is like one of the number one, as far as like law enforcement, this is like one of the, and she has, as far as I know, zero law enforcement experience.
No.
So if you're hiring the brightest and the best, I only get the best. Wouldn't you want somebody in law enforcement that has a little bit of law enforcement experience, especially if they're going to be running the entire fucking department for the entire country? That would seem to me that you would need somebody more than a loyalist. That would seem to me like you would need somebody that might actually have an idea how to do the job. Now, if the job was killing dogs, she's your girl. You know what I mean? Like, send her down to Ohio. Let's see how she does. None of this really makes sense to me so far. Well, I shouldn't say none. Stephen Miller is really the only one out of the bunch that does make sense to me. But again, I'm hoping for the best. Hope that it just works fucking out. Now, onto another story. I seem to be taking I'm hogging the mic a bit. But
That's all right.
this is the one that's actually big in the news right now, is his plan to dismantle completely the Department of Education. He's made it clear that, let's see, on a campaign, I want to make sure I get this quote right. I say it all the time. I'm dying to get back to do this. We will ultimately eliminate the federal Department of Education, he said in September at the Wisconsin rally. We will drain the government education swamp and stop the abuse of your taxpayer dollars to indoctrinate American youth with all sorts of things that you don't want to have our youth hearing. Okay, so what don't we want to have our youth hearing?
Truth.
Well, we don't want our youth hearing that there are transgender people. We don't want our youth hearing that what? I mean, honestly, what? That people have sex? If they have a phone, they already know that. I don't care if they're second grade, they figure that shit out. Yeah. So what exactly are we protecting our children from? Because to me, this sounds more like I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. Correct. So that everything has to go through me, and I will be able to decide how those billions of dollars are spent. And I get to say whether or not I like how you are running your school and whether or not your university is teaching things that I think are within line. And if you're teaching, I don't know, critical race theory, which I have yet to see taught at any fucking school or anywhere that, like, the only place I think that I've ever seen critical race theory taught was in law school because it's a legal, like, definition. Like, it explains legally shit. So I guess we're going to no longer have law schools, or at least the law schools won't have any federal funding because they're kind of, they need to
still be channeled through Trump University.
Yeah. So look, not to freak out, all right, because I'm going to read a bunch of shit that I don't think most people know what the Department of Education does. I'm going to read what the Department of Education does.
Before.
And the reason I'm going to do this is because this is actually what is stirring up a lot of the fear from people who did vote for him. You know, I've read tweets or Twixes of people like really freaking out, and then I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if they were really voters or whatever. I'm just reading what I'm reading, right? It's social media. You don't know what's true or not. But there are a lot of people that are out there saying, had a conversation with, you know, the family member that voted for Trump. And now they're freaking out because they're realizing that getting rid of the Department of Education means that their handicapped child or their special needs child may not get the education and assistance that they need. Okay? Keep that in mind. We're going to get back to that, but keep that one in mind. All right, so one of the things they do is, the first thing is establishing education policies, setting federal guidelines and policies for education across the U.S., shaping standards, goals, and accountability systems. I think that's a good thing. It keeps things consistent. That means that if, you know, you're a business owner and you have somebody that's applying from Mississippi, you have a reasonable ability to believe that either they were a really good student in a very bad system, or you're able to say, I know that certain standards were applied and they made it through those standards. So I know that there's a baseline. As an employer, I'd want to know that you have a baseline level of education that I can depend upon, that I'm not going to have to worry about whether or not you know certain things. That's what public schools are supposed to do. It's supposed to get, and really, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not a big fan of public schools in many ways because they're so institutional. Most of them look like fucking jails from the outside. And now we're happy that they look like jails from the outside because at least then the less windows they have, the less opportunity they have for a school shooting. So like this is a round robin as far as the public school system goes, as far as like creating an environment that's actually good for learning and having a standard that everyone has to meet in order to move forward. which I think that's actually a good thing.
Mhm.
But more importantly, this idea of what school was designed for, it really is just to make it. The vast majority of public education was made so that you could get a job in a factory, so that you were able to read, you were able to write, you were able to do basic math, you had a little bit of an idea of what science was about. These were the things that were meant to make it to where you could participate in society and not be a fucking idiot. At least have the ability, if you were curious, to pursue something. So we're just giving you the bare bones basics and exposing you to as many little things as possible, hoping that once you know how to read and write and maybe do a little bit of math and a little bit of science, that your curiosity will carry you further. And then you'll go on to secondary education and maybe continued education throughout your life, which is the ideal. That's what you should want to do. Okay? You should always be curious. You should always be thirsty. Whether you go to a public institution, whether you go to a private institution, whether you go to a fucking university, whether you go to a community college, you should continue your education as much as possible throughout your life. That doesn't mean that you have to go to an institution like those. You can do that online. You have an entire fucking world in the palm of your hand if you're curious enough to look past certain bullshit. If you're curious enough to go past social media and actually go, you know what? I'm curious about whatever and dig into it. You have the ability to educate yourself your entire life. And that's what public education is meant to do. It's meant to be the foundation of that. Okay? Enough of my soapbox. 2, distributing federal funding. Administers federal funds to schools, colleges, and educational institutions, focusing on grants, aid, and financial support for low-income students and under-resourced schools. Okay, so now forget it. If you're a school in a bad neighborhood, you're done.
Yep.
You're done. You've already got teachers having to dip into their own fucking pockets for school supplies. Take away that federal funding and see how many teachers you lose. Because there's going to come a point where they're like, our hands are tied. We don't have the resources we need in order to do the job properly. We're teaching out of books that are 25 years old. They're not up to date. We're not able to give these kids the education that they need, and they all know it, and they're not paying attention because they know that we're full of shit because we don't have the funding we need to give them the resources they need in order to learn. So if you're in a bad neighborhood, you're fucked.
You're screwed.
You're fucked.
You're screwed.
And that's got, ultimately what they want to do is I think, want to get rid of public schools completely, even though that's mainly done on a local level. I think if it were a federal thing, they would just get rid of public schooling. I think that's really what they would do in this case. They would go, yeah, there's private schools and charter schools, and you can pay for that. And if you can't afford it, well, then your kid doesn't get an education. You can homeschool them. You can't do that because you have to work, and it's you don't have time to teach your child. Oh, well, I guess your kid's just going to be stupid. That's going to do more damage to the workforce in 4 years. If he gets this done within the first, let's say, 100 days of his administration, let's say the first year of his administration, all right? Let's say it gets done the first year. The 3 years that follow, the damage that was done to those children during the pandemic is now going to get multiplied. Because most of those kids that were in kindergarten on up, they're going to be affected by this. They were affected by the pandemic and it set their education back. Now they're going to be affected by the Trump pandemic, and that's going to set their education back. All right, number 3, ensuring equal access, right? So this enforces laws related to education opportunities such as Title IX, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and other civil rights protections. All right, so if you're in a wheelchair and your school needs a ramp, too bad.
Get up and walk, you lazy bastard.
You lazy son of a bitch. collecting and analyzing data, gathers statistics on performance of schools and students, conducts research, and publishes reports to help guide policy and improve education quality. How could that be a bad thing? To actually go, we need the data so we know whether or not we're doing the right things and if those things are working or not working, and helping kids get the education that they need. You have to have some form, some form of accountability. Now, whether you want to hold the teachers accountable or whether you want to hold the kids accountable or you want to hold both, there's got to be some form of accountability that the job is being done. You don't clock in at McDonald's and go into the shitter for 8 hours and then come back out and clock out. I'm just saying, you can't, any job.
Can't?
No, you can't. I'm sorry, dude. I know you never worked at a McDonald's, but no, you can't. Supporting educational research and innovation, funds and promotes educational research through grants and partnerships with institutions, aiming to find new methods and technologies to enhance learning. Again, how is that a bad thing? Monitoring compliance ensures that educational institutions comply with federal laws such as anti-discrimination policies and accessibility requirements. Oh, so you're going to actually hold people responsible to not be racist as far as education goes, to not, all right. Oh, sorry, Timmy, you're in a wheelchair and we can't help you anymore. Administrating student loan programs. So you're going to get rid of the Department of Education, and whether you like it or you don't,
regardless,
it doesn't matter. You still have all these student loans that are out. Somebody needs to be there to make sure, and somebody needs to be paying for that accountability and the repayment. I mean, if nothing else, you would think as a businessman, he's going to have to figure out what to do with that part of it. Unbelievable. So you might be kissing student loans goodbye. That might be the case, but not what you owe. So if you owe student loans, you're still going to owe them because they'll figure out how to find 10 guys named Phil from accounting that will do nothing but collect bills, right? Improving teacher.
Get Phil my crevice. Put him on the job.
Improving teacher quality. Offers grants and resources to improve teacher training, certification, and professional development to enhance educational outcomes. Oh, so you mean that the Department of Education is going to help make sure that the teachers are educated as much as possible so they can pass on that education and do that to, all right, yeah, the kids don't need it, fuck them. Providing resources for parents and students, supplies, information, tools, and guidance, and to help families make informed decisions on education. That sounds like they just make pamphlets on what college to go to and how to get help. Addressing national educational priorities, develops and implements initiatives and to respond to emerging educational challenges such as literacy, STEM education, and career readiness. Now, with all that being said, large chunk of that is of getting rid of the Department of Education is right out of Project 2025.
Mm-hmm.
He's run on it. I believe it's in Agenda 47, but it's really just a copy and paste off of Project 2025 with a few edits.
Well, the Project 2025, he's never going to really refer to it. He'll incorporate those ideas to his Agenda 47.
Oh, I know.
He'll never adopt it because it's not his brand.
No. That's the thing. That's what Agenda 47 is steal. Yeah, and I don't think Project 2025 people care. They're like, fine, just do this.
Yes. You
can take credit for it. You can call it Agenda 47. You can call it Trump 47. You can call it whatever the fuck you want. You can call it antelopes butt fucking chimpanzees if you want. Just do it. Right? I mean, I don't think that it's an issue of credit that any of these people that put this together are looking for. Because behind the scenes, they know, oh, that was mine. That was ours. That was our group. That was your group. That was Phil from accounting. He came up with that one. Right? So I don't think that they care because they never expected to get credit for it in the first place. And they'd be crazy to think that if Trump did get in, which he did, that he would give credit to anyone else. This is a guy who doesn't even build the building, but puts his name on it and collects money. He doesn't make the product. He just licenses his name and collects the money. He's a very...
Rented out, what, 3 floors, was it, to China's government in New York City?
Yeah, something like that. He just...
But China's
they're the enemy. Yeah, unless they're paying rent on 3 floors, then they're fine with me. It's very transactional, right? And at the end, he wants low risk for him, low responsibility for him, right?
Yes.
And high return. That's all he's looking for. And now he's in that position again. This doesn't take into effect, like I said, the handicap programs alone that this is going to affect is insane, right? So like special education is going to go away, right? Unless they figure out how to disperse these things to other departments, which is how it was before Jimmy Carter. In 1979, then President Jimmy Carter, a Democrat from Georgia, signed legislation making the Department of Education a cabinet-level agency, fulfilling campaign pledge he had made to one of the largest teachers' unions, the National Education Association. Previously, the federal education programs were housed in other agencies. Trump has not said exactly how he would want to shut the department down, which would require an act of Congress, or what would happen to federally funded education programs if he did. Okay, so what that means is it's got to go through Congress, supposedly. Well, that's not going to be too hard, especially in the first 100 days. You got the House and the Senate. I see this getting rubber stamped in both chambers and being done within the first probably 30 to 60 days. And like I said, I think that what people don't understand is they don't necessarily have a plan on what to do with the stuff that they need to keep. Like, even if all you did was slice off the student loan program to just be a collection agency for those loans that are still still outstanding, you still have to have that mechanism in place in some way, and it still has to report up somehow. And if it's not reporting up as a cabinet level, then it's reporting up directly to the president. And I can't imagine that he wants to be burdened with the day-to-day of collections, which means that they're probably going to be running on their own with not a lot of oversight and potentially fucking things up. The other thing is special education. All right. Now I can take away the idea of teachers getting help with training and with, having to, like, all that part of it. I fucking hate it, but I can get over that. But what I struggle with is special education first and foremost. And the reason is that affected our lives. That our cousin was part of the special education in his particular school district. And if not for that, he would not have had an education and would have really had a much less fulfilling life. And I can't tell you how many kids I went to school with as I was growing up there was this one kid, Mark, in particular, and he was pretty much solid mentally, not 100%, but he was a good 88%, right? Nicest guy you'd ever meet. And he had dreams, he had aspirations, he had hopes. He wanted an education, and he worked hard. And he was a good dude. There were others that maybe, were not able to learn, but they were at least getting the environment, and they were getting taught other things. They were getting taught things that would be useful for them in their lives. So that one really upsets me. But the idea of fucking with student loans, man. And when you start making, like, essentially these threats because you're taking this agency away, and now it's just Trump essentially going, I don't like those books. I don't want you reading those books. I don't want those books in school. I don't want that taught in school. I don't want you to teach this or that or the other thing. Well, all of those students will suffer because of that. And how many universities are going to have money pulled? And not to say that the universities couldn't dial down the spending and couldn't bring down the cost of education. And I hope that that's what this does. I hope that what ends up happening is that all of his insanity brings down the cost of education for everyone. That would be a good thing. That would be something that I could get behind. And like I said, sometimes, no matter what, broken clock is at least right twice a day, and sometimes an idiot is a useful idiot. So maybe this will be something that brings down the cost of education. I'm trying to find the bright side of things, but I'm struggling with this one because it would seem to me that when you make one of the first things that you're going to do as president, attack education and not be offering up solutions rather than just, I'm going to get rid of this entity, and not being able to really articulate.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, not being able to articulate how it's going to look after you get rid of it. What are you going to do? Are you going to slice off this piece and slice off that piece, put it in that department, put it in that department? And like, where are these? This isn't something you just, you don't just stop on a dime if you're a semi doing 80. And that's what this is. The Department of Education is a semi doing 80 miles an hour. You can't just stop on a dime. And there are responsibilities that if you're going to be the person that stands in the road and puts your hand out to stop that semi, there are responsibilities as far as the cargo that semi is hauling. And it might be life-changing. What are we doing with that?
Well, that's the calling card of Trump's administration, his platform. It's about deconstruction, not an ounce of reconstruction.
Which is odd because he's a developer. You would think he would want to develop.
He's a developer in name.
Yeah.
He has other people spearheaded so that he can hang out with Jeff Epstein, check out women.
And Elon.
Yeah, that's his new buddy.
It is his new buddy. And that should be terrifying for everyone. Apparently, on these cabinet picks, Elon's been sitting next to him or been advising him on cabinet picks. If you don't think, whatever it cost Elon, let's say that Elon had, I know he was doing $1 million a day for 30 days or whatever it was, if he signed the petition and blah, 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 whatever. But beyond that, I don't know what Elon's kicked into the political bucket. But let's say it's $100 million, which is, that's fucking chump change for him, really. 100 million? He paid what, 42 or 44 billion for Twitter?
Yep.
So
Even
now
though he in the end really didn't want it.
He didn't. Still bought it. And now how he's using it. So you got this guy who's got transportation with Tesla, space with SpaceX, tunnel building with the Boring Company, and Starlink. So he's got satellites, government contracts, internet, social media. And how much do you want to bet? And it wouldn't surprise me at all. Elon leverages a big buy into Truth Social. How much you want to bet that that's actually what's been going on? How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet? Because that stock was falling prior to the election night like a fucking brick. How much you want to bet?
Like a wet pair of panties.
That Elon was buying up stock.
Like a blind roofer.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. And what that does is that shores up that stock enough to where Trump can start selling. And I think Elon was willing to do that because what does it mean for Elon? How many government contracts?
Yes.
How many? How many? Forget billions. We're probably talking $1 trillion over the course of time. Because those government contracts can go on 10, 20 years, depending on what you're doing. He's setting himself up to be the next Raytheon. He's setting himself up, as far as government contracts, to be the next Boeing. And he's going to do it. He's going to do it because he's got a useful idiot in Trump.
Boeing, isn't that the company that when you buy a plane ticket, the ticket comes with a free wrench?
Yes. And doors are optional. So that's what I've been reading is that people are really in this position of they fucked around and they found out. And a lot of them are having buyer's remorse.
Well, let me get your take on this morsel of yummy feel-goodiness.
All right. All
hey,
ears.
bitch, we control your bodies, and guess what? Guys win again.
Charlie Kirk.
On the lip. No, that was Nick Fuentes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fuentes. Yes.
Yes. Who had that inspirational message on video to the world.
Yeah, he did that creepy thing where he went, I'm your congressman, and I'm in charge of your body. Yeah, Fuentes is a creepy son of a bitch, and I don't know if he's doing it out of his mom's basement, but I'll be damned if it doesn't look like it.
Well, in related news, he got doxxed.
Oh, did
his personal address was then leaked after this, and he fled his home. Reportedly is actually now staying with his mother.
Well, at least there's some good news. I mean, I don't like seeing people doxxed. I don't even like that kid. That guy is a piece of shit. But I don't like that idea of doxing people. I think that's in. Not only is it dangerous for those people that get doxed, it's in poor taste for those who do the doxing. I think that's shit. But I do think that he's a piece of
feelings on that. In this particular case, I don't have any sympathy. Because while we do enjoy freedom of speech, you don't have freedom from repercussions.
That's true. But I think, regardless of what happens in the hellscape that is the internet and social media, I do think that a person's house is sacred and they should be left alone. Once they cross over that boundary, fuck off. That's their personal space. But still kind of funny. All right, give me a good news story so we can wrap this up.
Good news. I got a little bit of good news, I guess. Google has reported that moving to Canada searches on November 6th, how much do you think they peaked? What percentage?
I'm going to say 5,000%.
You hit it on the head.
Did I really?
5,000%.
Really? I hit it on the head?
Yes.
I had no idea. I never saw that.
1,000%. The usual is 400%. But it spiked to 5,000%. A large majority of the hits coming from Vermont, Oregon, and Washington.
That is hysterical. I honestly didn't see that as a story, and I never checked that type of shit. That's hysterical that I got it right on the money. I wish Elsie's Little Pickles was a fucking carnival game, because I would have a stuffed animal right now.
Yeah, you would.
Well, look, again, I just want to encourage anyone who's listened to the end. I know this was a little bit more tedious of a podcast, but I think that this is important so that you realize what is happening. And unfortunately, as these different policies and procedures get rolled out, and as these different things come to light, we here at Elsie's Little Pickles, me and Kiefer, we're going to make sure that you're aware of what is coming and what that means to the best of our abilities. We're going to make sure that you understand what to look for. And with that, that's another Elsie's Little Pickles, motherfuckers.